Let's get started, folks. My name's Kim Wilson. I'm the director of the Labor Education Center. And I am a proud member of the AFT. So I'd like to kick things off with the university welcome. Michael Goodman is coming up to the stage. I just want to say a couple words about Mike. He's a scholar and practitioner of public policy, and he was an important resource for an article that was just in the Globe last month about the role of Haitian immigrants, and especially the positive contribution which people need to see, learn more about. So I'd like to invite you up, Mike.
Thank you, Kim. It's my great honor to be here and welcome you to the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. I bring greetings from Chancellor Fuller, Provost Balasubramanian. I see lots of good friends, friends of the university, friends of labor. I think in these challenging times that we live in, this is an important kind of an event where we can come together and celebrate all of the accomplishments of the Labor Education Center, Kim and her team, and I think refocus our energies on education moving forward, because it's clear there's a lot of our neighbors have some learning to do. I'm very happy to be here this evening. I'm happy to be here. I congratulate all the distinguished honorees this evening, and I look forward to enjoying a lovely meal and a banquet and celebrating all of us being here together at UMass Dartmouth. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of you for your continued support. This is our 49th year, so be ready for a big one next year. And I want to thank our musicians, fellow members of AFT from Berklee College of Music, Local 4412. So thank you to David Thornscott and Philip Grenadier. I want to thank the catering staff as well. They're members of the UFCW, Local 328. And we have a representative of the Union of the Clerical Workers in ASME. So I'm very proud to let you know that this is a 100% union campus. So the grad employees are working on their first contract. There's a table in the back, but we are all union. And I'd like to recognize one of our elected officials, Chris Hendricks. So UMass Dartmouth has a higher percentage of students receiving Pell Grants for students of lower income families. And last week, UMass Dartmouth announced free tuition and fees being paid for students from families that make less than $75,000 a year. Yeah, pretty incredible. So much thanks goes to the two teachers' unions in the fight for the Fair Wage Amendment, which is what's led to this victory. I want to call out the Mass Teachers Association. I understand we have a group here. And then our union, American Federation of Teachers, as well. So, fought just as hard for the Fair Share Amendment, and I want to mention the victory that we just had, the ballot question around MCAS. And so for folks who don't know, that's the high stakes test that has prevented some students from graduating from high school. And with all the work of so many people, that is gone. So I want to talk about the election 1 week ago. I think you can't be here and not talk about it. But I do want to point out that we have not, the Constitution here, we have not lost the freedom of speech. We have not lost the freedom of the press, and we have the right to assemble. And this is the core, right? This is the core of the labor movement, and it's the core of social change work they're able to do by working together. And I want for folks to remember that 49% of people who voted endorsed a different vision. So 49%, it makes me think the First Amendment is not going away. So. And I want to mention the people, the good working class people of Fall River, who for the first time went red. And there's an article in the Boston Globe today about that. And I think that it's our responsibility to listen and to understand why people vote the way that they do. We need to listen respectfully and try to understand where we're coming from, because it's not going to change unless we're able to work together as much as possible. And we're all going to be impacted by the election results. We have some insulation being in Massachusetts to a degree. There are immigrants here tonight that are going to be under fire, and we need to figure out how to support them. So I have just a few words about the Labor Center. I appreciate everyone's support. I wasn't here last year. I was on medical leave, and point of personal privilege, if you have a heart murmur, get it checked out. So in my place, the acting director was Camila Viveros. And Camille brought the Reverend Barber, which was such a coup to have such an important figure connected to faith communities to come. And I heard his speech on our podcast channel, and so if others who weren't there would like to hear his speech, I had to listen to it a couple times to catch it all. It's available online, and we'll be hearing more about the podcast series from Jim Snow. Camille continues his work with student engagement, student retention, and creating meaningful internships. Over the summer, he organized a conference around art and organizing, and we started student scholarships. So we had our first this year. Next year, we'll have two, and I think many of us here remember Kathy Cassavant of Unite Here. And we're so glad to be able to have a scholarship in her name. So I just want to thank again Ida Almeida, Camille Viveros, and Jim Snow for keeping it going and having the center thrive. So I'm happy to have a big welcome to our new director of the Workers Ed program, Eva Dos Santos. And I don't think they're willing to stand up, but we have 3 teachers that are hitting 25 years of service to the Workers Education program. So Carla Mello, Susan Potter-Rouse, and Joanne Pensonault. And I would just like to say with Joanne, she has developed a curriculum around what we'll be hearing about later, the underage and unprotected story about the exploitation of child labor in the fish houses. So Joanne actually did a curriculum about our mural project as well. So we're happy to have her here and a group of students. So thanks for coming. So we're proud to have 338 adult learners that are part of the Labor Center in downtown New Bedford. We're looking to move out of a basement space. We were in the Star Store, if people remember that fiasco. But we have raised every year over $1 million, and that's from DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So very proud to have existed as a grant-funded program for all these years. So, pretty impressive, very impressive. So this year we continued with our legislative breakfast that we've been doing for many, many years with our partner, the Greater Southeastern Mass Labor Council. We have more legislators than ever this year. And I just want to mention Lisa Lemieux, who we all know and love. She has done the smart thing to completely take the week off after the election. So that's why we're missing her, and I know she would like to be here. She's such a great MC that we miss her. So just to hit on our awardees, and then we'll get to the food. The buffet is ready. I want to express how happy we are to celebrate longtime building trades leader Doug Nelson. So Doug is from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 223, and he's been a visionary in getting the Building Trades South program up and running for women and people of color to get into the trades. So really appreciate his work. And we have Bright Spot. Hopefully all of these are bright spots with the awardees. It's the courageous Teamsters, Local 59, who have been on strike and won for a writer. So my colleague Camille will be speaking more about them later. So we have special, never done this before, awardees who are journalists from the Public's Radio, Frontline, PBS, who over at least a year, if not two, wrote an incredible article, which is also a podcast, and there's also a video about the exploitation, the hyper-exploitation of child labor on the waterfront. And it's so important to get to have that kind of information out in great detail. And Corinne William and a group of women will be coming up later to honor them. And finally, we could not be more honored than to have President Randy Weingarten here with us tonight. So for folks who don't know, our union, AFT, has 1.8 million members in the country. So I really look forward to hearing Randy's comments. It couldn't be a more important time to hear from her. Her leadership has always been an inspiration. So thanks for being here, Randy, and look forward to hearing from Jessica Tang, who's our Massachusetts president. So I would love to recognize everybody. We do have on the screens, everybody rolls through who's been able to donate, and then just being here is being supportive. So keep your eye out for the ads that are running, and particularly our community partners that will also be running on the screen. So it's great to be here. Looking forward to the program. I understand the food was really good last year, and hoping for another year of good food. I will open the process for the buffet to begin. So thank you, everyone. I hope everybody enjoyed the dinner. So, thank you. So I'm going to call up our friend Jim Pimentel, who I have known since I moved to the area when he was a bricklayer, and is now an organizer, the Bricklayers Union, and an officer for the Southeast Mass Building Trades, as well as an executive board member for the Southeastern Mass Labor Council. And so I'm bringing up Jim right now. Thanks. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Kim, and good to see you all. I have the honor of presenting Doug Nelson with the George Ripley Building Trades Award. And I just got to say, about 3 years ago, the Southeastern Mass Building Trades Council signed a project labor agreement with Vineyard Wind for the first major offshore wind farm in the country. And like any new industry, it's had its challenges, its bumps, its hurdles. But the electricians, probably more so than any other trade, have been the beneficiary of man hours from the project. And Doug Nelson, as former business manager for IBEW 223, has been a steady and calming influence in that whole process, because we needed labor and management to work very well together in this new industry. And so, like a lot of what we do in the offshore wind industry and the clean energy economy and everything else we're involved in, politics has a major influence. And then Doug decided to hang it up on September 27th and decided to retire. And as you all know, since then, everything's gone to shit politically. So I just have to say, Doug, why in the hell couldn't you wait until November 6th to retire? But no, all kidding aside, for those of you that have been around long enough to have known the late, great George Ripley, we got one right here. George was a true gentleman, an old school trade unionist, a consummate professional, and Doug epitomizes all those things. He has been a pleasure to work within the building trades. I'm the president of the Southeastern Mass Building Trades. Doug was vice president of the Brockton Building Trades. We work together on a host of issues, and so it gives me great pleasure to present this plaque, which I'm going to read to you. To business manager Doug Nelson, IBEW Local 223 AFL-CIO, the George Ripley III Memorial Award, in recognition of his record of service to the members and families of Local 223, in recognition of his faithful participation in and support of the Southeastern Massachusetts Building Trades Council, AFL-CIO, and in recognition of his meaningful and generous support for the work of Building Pathways South and apprenticeship in general, and in recognition of his important role in the leadership of the Southeastern Massachusetts labor movement, presented this 12th day of November 2024 by the Arnold M. Dubin Labor Education Center, UMass Dartmouth. Thank you.
Jimmy, when you called me about this, you really kind of set me back. I really, we here as labor leaders, labor people throughout Massachusetts, Southeastern Mass, Brockton area, we do this every single day. This is what we do. We do it for the right reasons. I do know that we have a lot of challenges, but you know what? Jimmy's talking about me up here, but I have to say to Jimmy, I still remember the first day I met Jimmy walking into Southeastern Mass Building Trades 15 years ago as the agent for 223, and seeing this guy just standing there up in front was come up to you, welcomed you, but that's what we do. That's what we always do. And he's right. The whole offshore wind situation has been a roller coaster and a half. I'm happy to say that I had to turn the keys over to Steve Barry, IBEW Local 223's new business manager. But it's what we do every single day, and we all stand on the shoulders of giants that have been here before, that have done this work for us every single day. And I think no matter what I do in retirement, I am always going to try to be a proponent of the labor unions. And if there was ever a time that we needed an organization like the labor education, it's today, and we all know why. not getting political, but that's what it is to teach what labor is all about, to teach the people coming up behind us on what labor is all about. I accept this award. I appreciate it. On behalf of me, my wife, my mother are here. I really appreciate this award, and I thank you all. I will say, I've been here from time and time again. I never expected to be standing up here, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so on to the next award. Thank you so much. It was great to hear Doug, to hear you speak. And I also want to point out that Kevin Berceau is with us. He is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Mass AFL. And Chrissy Lynch sends her regards, but she was not able to be here tonight. So she's our newest president of the State Fed. So thanks, Kevin. I would like to introduce to the stage a group who've been involved with underage and unprotected, the article that covers many issues that we're going to hear about. So if Corinne, would you like to come forward to give us a little background, and then we'll be able to learn more about the story. This is Corinne Williams. She's the director, Community Economic Development Center. And if you don't mind, Corinne's one of my closest friends, so.
Thanks so much, Kim. I know a lot of you have had the opportunity to see the amazing photos of Lewis Hine who made these compelling photos at the turn of the century, highlighting what the issues were during the textile era of child labor, highlighting and shedding a light on those kinds of conditions. And we know that there's a through line. The legacy kind of carries on with some amazing journalists from the Public's Radio, NPR, Rhode Island NPR, who were involved in an amazing series and documentary. And they worked tirelessly, and we worked with them over the years. And part of their work to highlight what's going on in the seafood processing industry in New Bedford with undocumented and child labor, teenage labor that really shed a light and told these stories. And part of their work, they collected 2,000 pages of documents and interviewed over 100 people for the work that they did. And we worked over the years with Nadine Sabai and Nina Sparling as well, and the rest of your crew, who have been amazing to really shed light on these kinds of unsafe and abusive conditions that continue. A lot of these kids are just struggling to survive. They're going to school while they're working as well. And some of the people, some of the folks who were interviewed by Nadine and Nina are here tonight. And one very special person who was interviewed, who was also going to high school at the time and was working in seafood processing, is Karina Raimundo, and she's going to say a word or two about her experiences and to express the gratitude to these brave journalists who are continuing with this amazing legacy to shed light on child labor in our contemporary times. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Luisa Karina Curraimundo, and today I'm here to express my gratitude to the reporters who work so hard to show the reality faced by so many students in the New Bedford area. From myself, someone who worked at the fish industry during the high school, it means a lot to me to see all you here who cares about our stories and is here to make a good change in the other story of the other people and the other students who are facing it now. So thank you for all the hard work you do.
Hi, my name is up there, Lisa Mayanauer. I am the chair of the Sociology and Anthropology Department, and I am also one of the co-founders of the Centro Comunitario de Trabajadores, the Workers' Community Center in New Bedford. So I have known Nadine for a long time, known many of the young women and men who have worked in this industry for years, and I've been on the board of the Labor Education Center. Kim can tell me how many years it's been. It's been a very long time. And this, I'm very proud to present this award because we were brainstorming at a steering committee meeting, what can we do? We give sort of the same awards. Is there something else that we should be thinking about? And I suggested, why don't we give an award to these journalists? We've never done this before, but those of us who work in the area and who work with immigrant communities know how significant, how path-breaking that research and those stories are. And it is still happening. If you saw exposés in the New York Times and elsewhere, that the food processing industries, whether it's poultry, slaughterhouses, construction, roofing, and here in our area, seafood processing, the Market Basket supermarket, all really have depended upon this very vulnerable population. So I would like to give this award. So the Richard M. Fonterra Memorial Award, presented to Nadine Sabay and Nina Sparling of the Public's Radio, in recognition of their critical investigative reporting on the widespread employment of underage undocumented workers in the seafood processing industry in New Bedford in violation of federal and state law, and in recognition of their depiction of the broken immigration system that contributes to the continuing exploitation of kids in our economy, and in recognition of their personification of the remarkable place that public broadcasting occupies in our society. As Kim said in her opening remarks, we still have the First Amendment. When we agreed to give this award, we did not know what the outcome of the election was going to be. I think this is more significant today than ever.
Thank you everyone so much. Can you hear me okay? I'm like the most soft-spoken person on radio, I swear. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Nina and I are deeply honored to receive this award from the UMass Dartmouth Labor Education Center. Thank you for recognizing our work. We share this honor with the more than 24 children who trusted us with their stories. Those kids told us about coming to the US alone, in some cases swimming across the border, and needing to find work immediately. They did what immigrants in New Bedford have done for decades. They applied for work at staffing agencies and were placed in jobs at seafood processing plants. Many of the kids we talked to worked long hours at the plants at night, filleting and packaging seafood, then tried to go to school during the day. But they couldn't keep up such a grueling schedule for very long.
As we reported this story, we realized that a lot of the adults in those kids' lives knew that teens were working in seafood processing plants. We're talking about teachers, guidance counselors, attorneys, but many of these people didn't want to say anything to us or to regulators because they knew the sort of economic necessity that these jobs held in teenagers' lives. There was also a lot of finger pointing. So the staffing agencies where kids told us that they got their jobs said that they weren't to blame because teens had used fake IDs to get work. The seafood processing plants said staffing agencies were the one responsible for verifying workers' ages. And regulators told us that they didn't have the resources to conduct lengthy investigations. That's back to you.
What I think a lot of times we forget is that these are kids. They may have had adult responsibilities, but they're children. They would tell us about the latest gossip in school, the best music to listen to, and about the soccer players they admired most. I even joined an intramural soccer team just so I could learn about the game. I swear to you, and I was the worst player on the team. But I YouTube searched like all the top players and Ronaldo and all these. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like in above my head. But at least I was, at least I was able to have a conversation and like know my basic soccer. So yeah, it was great talking to them.
Yeah, I think sort of what you're saying is there was a lot of effort to understand that the people we were talking to were teenagers and children who had lives and interests and heartbreak and all of those kinds of things. But what I'm supposed to say is that, we are, as many folks have mentioned, a week out from a presidential election, and there's a lot of uncertainty, particularly around immigration and labor, and we don't know what's going to happen to the systems in place that are meant to protect these kids and other workers, and it's, there's a possibility that the situation is going to get more difficult, and it's going to be harder to report abuses or seek protection under labor laws. We will see. And I think that what Nadine and I hope is that investigative journalists, maybe the two of us, hopefully other people too, will continue to do this reporting and look at these issues, because that's what we can do.
And I just want to bring up just one point. This is more personal to me, but it really shows how much anything that you work on requires a team of people. I got a major disability when I started this investigation, and then Nina joined with me. And I was battling through that, and I still am throughout the investigation, and talking to these teens. And sometimes I would have incidents in front of these teenagers who were incredibly supportive and wonderful. But I did want to thank my husband, Miguel, who's over there. Hi. I just want to, this really is about the kids, but we wouldn't have been able to tell those stories, especially me being able to talk to these kids, if it wasn't for his support and for his push to help me continue, and Nina as well. Nina was with me throughout the entire time. So I'm really happy that we were able to bring these stories to light. We have known about teenagers working in seafood processing plants for decades, as I mentioned. It was an open secret for a long time. Many people were fearful of speaking. That was our biggest challenge in reporting out this story. But I think because of it, we've learned a lot, and we are starting the process, hopefully, of creating a better future for these kids. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you for appearing at this 49th annual Arnold M. Dubin Labor Education Center banquet. Next year's going to be a big one, but this is far exceeding our expectations, and we're thrilled with the availability and appearance of President Weingarten. In keeping with our mission of supporting workers and their unions and community members as they pursue fairness in the future, the Labor Education Center has created a podcast, which we did in 2022, called South Coast Working. I think you see it up there. And you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and others. And its creation was through the generous support of the Dubin family, Arnold Dubin's kids, Faith, Stephen, and his grandson, Isaac. We're very much hopeful that South Coast Working will fill a regional vacuum, along with the public's radio, when it comes to stories about workers and the labor movement. We need it more than ever, I think you would admit. We've had great guests like Reverend Barber, the Attorney General of Massachusetts, Andrea Campbell, and my favorite, Steve Tolman, among others. And we've had great student involvement, both with the production of the podcast as well as with their own stories, which is an important feature of the labor education's work. Shortly, you'll hear about the newest episode, which is heavily involves students with my colleague Camilo Viveras. We're all about receiving suggestions for ideas for episodes, and we hope you'll share ideas with us and definitely listen up. And hopefully you can get that QR code and log on. Finally, we just wanted to take a minute. You noticed on your way in that there are some panels in the back describing the history and life of Frances Perkins. Frances Perkins is someone that a lot of people don't know, and that's a crime. She was the country's first woman cabinet member, serving for the entire 12 years of Franklin Roosevelt's administration. She's widely recognized as the force behind Social Security, the Fair Labor Standards Act, unemployment insurance, minimum wage, the National Labor Relations Act, as the only woman in the room. And there is literally a book with that title. Most of the good things that came out of the New Deal had their origins in Frances Perkins' work. Extremely important person. But Frances Perkins was actually born in Massachusetts. She went to Mount Holyoke College, but the one site that was a lifelong refuge for her during her life was the family homestead in Newcastle, Maine. A national campaign is underway to request that President Biden establish the Frances Perkins homestead as a national monument. The effort has the support of the AFL-CIO, many of its affiliates, and we hope that you'll take a minute. There's a Q code card on your tables. If you could maybe scan that code and sign the petition to urge the President, now with the few weeks that he has remaining, to designate the Frances Perkins Center as a national monument. It'll be a much-deserved honor for a woman whose legacy has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, a cause well worth doing, and especially today. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Camille Viveras. I have the fortune of working with Jim and Kim Wilson, our director. I encourage people to check out the Frances Perkins information in the back. If you've spoken to me today, you've probably heard me talk about how there's this publication out there about a plan for 2025. So I think there's some ideas from Frances Perkins of unfinished business that we can try to envision for our future and our plans in the future, right? We don't have the luxury or the privilege to mourn. We really have to organize, like Joe Hill told us, right? Even in his bleakest moments. So, I'm here to share some of the inspiring work that we've done with students. I'd like to thank everybody here who have taken the time to meet with our students. And this is an upcoming podcast that is going to highlight one particular project called Worked Up. And for those of you who have sat down with students, you probably already know about this, right? Where you sat down and students asked you questions. We know we're at an upsurge right now as far as popularity in economic justice, in unionization, but a lot of folks come from backgrounds where there aren't unions in their family. Union density is at one of its lowest, yet we have, among people under 30, a real popularity in unionization. So it's through intergenerational conversations and education that we're going to be able to help fill that gap, and that's precisely what this class was about. The College of Visual and Performing Arts invited the Labor Ed Center into the classroom, and we did presentations about unions, and most importantly, we connected students with union members. So we're going to listen to just a little glimpse of that recording, and you have on your table some QR codes, and you'll be able to follow, any episodes, listen to some of our past interviews and activities. So we're going to listen to, without getting too meta, you're going to hear from Jim Snow through the audio, and Howie, who is a star steward at the Teamsters in Fall River. So
the students then had a chance to interview community members with labor ties through the Labor Education Center. The project came together in an audio compilation of oral histories, giving voice to workers. In these interviews, union members also took the time to share with students about the union difference. Here is Jim Snow, a longtime member of the Painters Union and a labor leader at the AFL-CIO and the Labor Education Center.
Well, I think there are probably a couple of signature benefits. One is that you are able to negotiate your wages, hours, and working conditions with the employer, who otherwise would set them by himself or herself, not always to your satisfaction. And the second is just the mutual protection. There's protection in a union from, arbitrary treatment by employers.
The students also spoke with Howard Payne.
What do you see as the importance of unions?
Well, I think collective bargaining, people who stay at the same job for a long time and they're loyal to the company, there's a benefit with having a defined benefit, like a pension, because it lasts forever. Another benefit that the union has, in our union, we have early retiree health insurance. So there's a lot of benefits, especially for older people that have worked their whole lives.
These oral histories were a big part of their project and had an impact on how they view workers' rights.
I feel like too many occupations kind of treat people as machines and don't realize that we also have our own lives and our limits and faults behind the scenes. And sometimes people expect things to be at a consistent, steady pace when reality is no, we need breaks.
So those are just a few voices from our upcoming podcast called Worked Up. And that podcast actually highlighted a student exhibition where at the New Bedford Art Museum, these voices were highlighted. People could interactively listen to the oral histories. They could also see some art that was created by students that were inspired by the labor movement. And additionally, they were so inspired by the interviews that they heard and people they talked to that they created an organization called Worked Up based on the tenets of unionization. And we were working with their instructor, Gabo, who actually had students meet with our administrators here at the university, right? And this was the first time that many of them had ever met with administrators. So they surveyed other fellow students and they collected grievances, and just like a union, they presented those grievances to the administrators. So thank you once again for your continued support of the Labor Ed Center and our work to bridge these gaps between people. We know ageism works on both ends, right? It dismisses young people and it often sees older people as disposable. So we need everybody in the room, right, to work together, to innovate and listen to each other, to respect each other's skills, and celebrate our roles in transforming society, which is our mission here at UMass Dartmouth. So the Labor Ed Center is pivotal at actually helping fulfill the mission here at UMass Dartmouth. A group that we want to highlight tonight that's been very inspirational in labor struggles in the labor movement are the Teamsters Local 59, the workers at Ryder in New Bedford. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with this story, but some might say a strike of 8 workers, you wouldn't have the power to leverage enough power to win. But these workers who are mechanics and they use tools every day to fix Ryder vehicles that make millions and millions of dollars for this company, they knew from past experience the tool of the strike and how that tool was necessary to win justice in their struggle against this huge corporation, right? They took a vote democratically to deny the egregious proposal that Ryder threw in front of them, and they decided to go on strike. And for 17 days, many of the people here in the room joined them on the picket line. Teamsters from around New England joined them, and they were able to win because they had the courage, they had the vision, and they had the bravery to actually walk that line, right? And to stand up against their bosses, even as 8 people, an 8-person bargaining unit. So I'd like to invite the Teamsters to come and speak in their own voices to their story that I think we can all be inspired by. They won this struggle without any concessions, and they had improvements in their health care, wages, their pension benefits, and it just goes to show you that we have right in our own backyard, right amongst us, the type of leadership that we need to revigorate and to push the labor movement forward. So I'm going to read their award. So this award is called the On the Line Award, which I think is very appropriate, and it's named after Dora Bastrich. It's the Dora Bastrich On the Line Award, presented to Ryder Truck Teamsters, Teamsters Local 59, New Bedford, Mass., in recognition of their continuing solidarity in the face of the strong and active resistance by their employer, and in the recognition of their trust in the idea of collective action and the importance of their union, and in the recognition of the example they have set for workers everywhere in our region and beyond, and demonstrating the need for mutual aid and protection in times of industrial conflict, presented this 12th day of November 2024 by the Arnold M. Dubin Labor Education Center, UMass Dartmouth.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Camille. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremy Fonts. I'm the Vice President of Teamsters Local 59. Unfortunately, both Secretary Treasurer Belanger and President Sharp were unable to be here tonight. They're traveling and due to other IBT meetings, so I apologize. But I'm here tonight with the members from Ryder Truck in New Bedford who have been chosen as this year's recipients of the Arnold Dubin Dora Bastrich On the Line Award. I just want to let you all know that here at Local 59, all of us we're so proud of our members at Ryder for their constant and unwavering strength throughout the strike as they stood together against corporate greed that was just outlined. So they wanted to take it to the street, and our guys went out there, and here we are today. Their contract agreement will not only benefit them, but it's already the standard used in the areas throughout the country, and we couldn't be prouder of their solidarity as Teamsters. I'd also like to recognize and thank everyone from various labor organizations, politicians. Chris Hendricks is here. He walked the line with us, and all of those who supported our members. Stand up, Chris. So, and all of our members, too, that came and walked the line with us. A lot of people dropped off supplies, and especially their families that supported them through the whole thing and stood by. So George and Jeff asked that I express on behalf of the entire executive board and the staff just the congratulations for tonight's recipients, as well as all the other labor awards that were given out tonight. So if I can, just one more round of applause. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tim.
So we're fortunate to hear another song by our fellow union AFT members.
I'd like to introduce my president, Jessica Tang, who we're very fortunate to have a member of the National Executive Board who knows Randy well to be able to come and present the award. Thank you, Jessica.
So thank you to the UMass Dartmouth Labor Ed Center, and congratulations to all of the awardees tonight. Thank you for your work, thank you for your inspiration, and also thank you for sharing the stories that need to be shared. So it is truly my honor this evening to introduce our last recipient tonight. And I'm going to share a little bit of the formal bio, but then I'm going to divert a little bit. But Randy Weingarten is the president of the 1.8 million member AFT, which represents teachers, paraprofessionals, and school-related personnel, higher education faculty and staff, woo-hoo, nurses and other healthcare professionals, local, state, and federal government employees, and early childhood educators. And prior to her election as AFT president in 2008, Weingarten served for 11 years as president of the United Federation of Teachers, that's AFT Local 2, representing approximately 200,000 educators in the New York City public school system. And then I could read a bunch of her commendations, but the commendation that I actually would like to share tonight, and by the way, you should read her whole bio. It's really quite impressive, but it's also like 8 pages, and I don't think we need to hear it all tonight. But you should read it. It's actually very inspiring. But the commendation that I wanted to share was the one from Mike Pompeo, who shared that she is the most dangerous person in America. And I think that's a badge of honor, because if she wasn't a force of nature and so fierce in her leadership, she wouldn't be seen as such a threat, right? And that is a reputation to be proud of, because, as they say, well-behaved women seldom make history. And I guess you could say some people consider Randy not very well-behaved. But she is truly a history maker, and she's not just a labor leader who fights for the rights of all working people and fights for the belief that all really deserve opportunities and justice, but she's also a fighter for democracy and freedom. And so, what I want to share is a little bit of what I've seen up close over the last 7 years as a member of the Exec Council and AFT. I'll be honest, the first time I met her, I was actually quite intimidated and pretty nervous just even talking to her. I think sometimes I even still feel that way. But I've asked a few of the other leaders on the council, what word they would describe to use Randy. And you won't be surprised to hear inspiring, visionary, indefatigable, brilliant, and of course, tough. And she is. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because I've seen how she's the spear of the AHT, but she's also, in many ways, the shield. And I don't take that for granted. Leadership is not easy, as any labor leader knows in this room. And the threats that she's received, I know this, I've talked to Fed, our Secretary Treasurer, and he gets the pleasure of reading a lot of the emails. They're real, and they're constant. And she is the shield that shields so much of the rest of us who are doing this work and takes the brunt of a lot of that hate and threats and hurt, right? But she persists, and it's inspirational. And sometimes I don't know how she does it. She's literally everywhere, 3 states in one day. I really don't know how she does it. And when I ask, how do you keep going, in spite of all the unprecedented challenges we've had, whether it was Janus, whether it was a pandemic, right? Whether it's these divisive times we're in, how does she keep going? And I wish that Sharon, her wife, were here, and Gracie, her dog, because whenever I check in, the two of them are always part of the answer of how she keeps going. But despite how much she keeps going, she is to us, I think, so many times the answer when we're very lost, because like during the pandemic, there was no blueprint, right? For Janice, there was no blueprint. But whenever we go to her for help, she's always already got an idea and a plan and thought through, what we need to do. And that includes times like this, right? But it's the little stuff too. I'm talking about, she gets in the weeds of collective bargaining agreements in individual locals. And then of course is always there when we have ballot fights. And whether it was no on question 2 in 2016, that brought us to yes on question 2 in 2024, and everything in between, Student Opportunities Act, Fair Share Millionaires Tax, when I've called her to say, hey, we need help, we're partnering with MTA to get this ballot question done to fight for high standards, not high stakes, her answer is always yes. So it's not just though in Massachusetts that she's been here for all of us. It's leaders and millions of workers across our nation. And I've just seen her lead, again, in some of the most trying times, and actually really taken time to console individual people, even when it felt inconsolable. And so she's not just a fierce leader, but she's thoughtful, she's strategic, and she's kind, and she really does care. And in these times, with so much uncertainty, that is exactly the leadership that we need. And so it is truly my honor and pleasure to present the award tonight to my president, Randy Weingarten. So I'm going to read the plaque. In recognition for her progressive leadership of the 1.8 million member American Federation Teachers and an important leadership role in the AFL-CIO and the national labor movement, bringing a message of solidarity with all workers, and in recognition of her enlightened role in crafting innovative proposals to address issues at every level of our educational system, and in recognition of her tireless efforts to promote social and economic justice in urban, suburban, and rural America alike.
I love my leaders, and look at that Jessica Tang. Look how amazing she is, and look at the leadership she's providing here. Let's just say thank you, Jessica, for all of this. Thank you. If you don't start, and it's been an honor to kind of listen. I'm not quite sure that I can actually say something anymore after that, Jess. And my staff was looking at my notes. You think, I left my glasses there. You think I can read them? I'm not sure I could read them even if I had my glasses on. But, it's been an honor to sit and listen to the workers at Ryder, the stories that the PBS folks who were here and the young people who were part of that story and their courage, to hear Jim speak, to see Kim again, to see all of you who took over for Kim when Kim couldn't be here, to see Doug Nelson. This is the labor movement. This is actually the labor movement. It's, and to be, and I love the work around Frances Perkins, to be basically in a place in which Frances Perkins started thinking about the work that she did and the blueprint. If we think about a blueprint, the blueprint that she gave so many of us in terms of what to do, and the fact that she was a woman in really, truly a man's world and was so indefatigable and resilient and brilliant that she could actually move an agenda an agenda of Social Security that, by the way, today, for those who are following it, we finally in the House of Representatives repealed WEP GPO. Not the Senate, but the House. We've been watching 300 and some odd votes to 72. So, as we've been speaking today, my phone has been blowing up with what do we do tomorrow in the Senate? Because even with the election that we just had, and I suspect there's some Trump supporters in the room, even with the election that we just had, shame on us if we don't understand what it was about. And we may not ever really understand what it was about if we don't really listen to people who clearly want their leaders to actually solve problems. And all too often, in some ways, because those of us who work in education and are part of the labor movement, we are in that transcendent place or that vortex, or whichever way you want to talk about a V, of opportunity in America. So some of us heard Kamala Harris say when she talked about freedom and opportunity and the promise of America, we saw ourselves. We saw it, we felt it. And some people didn't. They saw in whatever Trump and the podcasts and other things were saying, they saw in that a sense of, that's how I get ahead. That's what I need. And for us in the labor movement, and this is a labor crowd, we actually are the only movement in America that is cross-generational, cross-gender, cross-race. We actually, because of who we represent and potentially who we could represent America and the aspirations of America, and particularly America's workers. And in some ways, that's why we are so attacked by the billionaires and the gazillionaires. Not only in America, but worldwide. That's why, as someone said, we were ascendant right after World War II and have fought to revive ourselves now. That's why Frances Perkins understood the importance of things like Social Security and the labor movement in the wake of things like the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Yes, sorry, I am a social studies teacher as well as the AFT president, so you knew you'd get some of that. But my point in saying all this is I'm not sure I have any of the answers, but I certainly don't have all the answers of why what happened on Tuesday happened. But I do know that if we believe that workers and working families should have a right to a living wage, to a voice at work, to a voice in democracy or in government, should have a way that after a life worked to be able to survive in retirement, to retire and be able to survive in retirement, to ensure that we are not one disease or one medical problem away from bankruptcy. To have family leave so that we can have a family and not feel like it is going to be a huge problem. To not worry about when we have kids or grandkids and elderly parents, what are we going to do if our elderly parent slips and falls and breaks a leg, and then what are we going to do? I mean, these are problems that every working family thinks about a lot, whether one is a migrant or whether one is the descendants of people from Plymouth Rock. This is who our movement is. It may not be so sexy, but it is vitally important for us as a movement to have people in either Washington or Boston or any of the capitals in this country or any of the municipalities, to have people in office that are going to help us, not hurt us. And to have people in office that don't say one thing to garner a vote and do exactly the opposite. So the most important thing I can say to us as a movement, other than thank you for this amazing honor, as someone who went to a labor school, I went to the ILR school at Cornell, and who has had the honor to teach at the ILR school every now and then. I really believe the labor schools are really important, and that's why I was honored to receive the award. But more important than the labor schools is those of us in this room. If we really do believe that workers should have a shot at a life well lived, and their families should be able to aspire, and that hope and aspiration and dignity should be our watchwords rather than fear and no control and anger, then we as a movement have to find ways, all of us, to really reconnect with the workers of the country and people in the country in the working class that feel so disaffected and feel like they don't have a shot. And we have to use our community writ large to be able to do that. And we can as a workers' movement. I know we can. I know we can because of what I saw tonight. But we have to be intentional about it. So I don't think, and I initially did for a few weeks and a few hours after Tuesday, about whether or not we had lost our democracy, and I carry around this book. It's a very well-worn book on tyranny that Tim Snyder wrote right after the 2016 election. I carry it around a lot. And I love several of the lessons in here, including lesson 2, which is defend institutions, including the labor movement, and lesson 20, which is be as courageous as you can, but also lesson 14, establish a private life. And I'll go through a couple of the others. But bottom line is, we need to be good to ourselves. We need to create community. We need to bring people in who are not like ourselves. And if we do these things and understand that the through line, I think, in this election was, it is the economy, stupid. And that we as a movement, from when we were founded to now,
are all about the economy. That we can turn this around to really, really have the real promise of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Randy. That was exactly what we needed tonight. So our program has concluded. I'd like to encourage people, if you'd like to have pictures of your group, pictures of yourself, just head on over to the wall there. And Sean Mills, who is our longtime video and photography professional, will be able to help out with that. All right, so good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.